Hey.
Oh, hey.
Hey, Hampton.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hi, Alyssa. How are you? I'm cold.
Well, it's winter. It's football. You're supposed to be freezing.
It's the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is supposed to be tropical and sunny. It's a postseason football game.
It's true. Anyway, I am Alyssa Rosenberg, and I am a columnist for The Atlantic and the editor of Washingtonian.com. And you are?
And I am Hampton Stevens, and I am also a columnist for The Atlantic, and I occasionally write for sports publications.
Cool. And you and I have been arguing all week over about how men root for sports teams, how women root for sports teams, and whether those two things can coexist. And it appears that we are going to continue this argument across all media until the end of time.
I think that's true of all men and women. Perhaps a Mars-Venus debate, I think.
Yeah,
But go. I think I had the last word online, so you have a response to my most recent contentions.
So you and I have been arguing about whether sports are about sex, whether they're about war, whether they're about male bonding, whether they're about America, whether they're, just an excuse for a lot of movies. Who knows what sport, the primal meaning of sports is sort of what we've been discussing. And
this is true.
I think what you and I have been disagreeing on is, from what I've been reading you saying, sports for you are sort of primarily about one thing. They're primarily about guys getting together and bonding, and the brutality of the game on the field, particularly in football, sort of reflects the doodly brutality of the interactions that you've been defending all week. And I think
Yes.
that my problem with that is that I think that sports are about a lot of different things. And that sounds really simplistic, but I think the idea that sports are just an expression of physical violence, and that sort of what happens on the field is the exact same thing that has to happen emotionally while you're watching them, just doesn't really ring true to me. I mean, I think that there's no one most authentic way to root for sports teams, and
Oh, no, you're wrong. No, absolutely, you're wrong. I mean, I really want to be respectful, and we're really friends, so, but I want to have, some exciting banter, but, I mean, it's kind of like saying, well, there's no one way to root for the symphony orchestra, to go see the symphony orchestra. Well, there's no right way to be a classical music fan, but there are some social norms. I mean, you don't paint your chest when you go to the symphony and be like, yay, cello, and so...
that said, you can
it's
paint your chest if you go to experimental classical music, so... I kid, mostly.
But yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about was women bringing out a player's looks. Tom Brady is usually the one people mention. I've heard people say that Aaron Rodgers is cute. It's funny how it's always the quarterbacks.
I actually happen to be, I am less of a quarterback stan than most girls. As I've said, I am going to grow
wide
up.
receivers.
I'm going to grow up and marry Wes Welker. That's pretty much my life plan.
Right. See that? Yeah, that's how it is. I was always defensive backs. For me, I knew I couldn't catch the ball, but I wanted to hit the guy who could have. But I mean, it really does say something to you about the position that you gravitate towards. But I think that what we talked about was that there are we're really talking about a masculine sphere. I mean, whether it's chauvinist or not, the fact that watching sports particularly is a guy's world, and so we're kind of talking about man cavedom, I guess, whether it's at the stadium or at home. And so I'm saying there are social norms that you adhere to, and one of them is if you bring up a player's attractive, you're telling me that you don't really care about the X's and O's, that you don't really care about what's going on in the field.
But the thing is, football is one of the last remaining pro sports where there are still cheerleaders. So what's the function of cheerleaders then? Is that to give you something to sort of sublimate the sexual urges that are brought out by intense play for? I feel like there's this double standard where women aren't supposed to talk about how the player looks, but you guys get to say that Anna Kournikova is hot and have a lot of beer ads where girls in skimpy tank tops tell guys to man up and drink something other than a light beer, and theoretically you like that, and that makes you buy more beer.
Actually, I'm resentful of that one just because I know the one you're talking about. I actually have the European briefs. I kid, of course, when I go swimming. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that the equivalent of that for men is to talk about money. Like, if you wanted to make a man uncomfortable and you were looking at Tom Brady, you wouldn't say he's good looking. You would say, man, he's got to be getting paid. Like, how much do you make, Bob? You know, so like, but I mean, what you're talking is all of a piece because it's all sexist. You know, like I'm not going to pretend it's not sexist and chauvinistic, but I mean, the purpose that cheerleaders serve are, you know, they're ornaments, they're spoils. And Tom Brady isn't an ornament, he's the warrior. I say spoils as in spoils of war.
But I mean, so I guess
it's kind of objectionable.
So I guess my question is this, right? I mean, why is it that sports are supposed to be the provenance of the man cave, right? Like, my money is just as good as yours. I can pay for Super Bowl tickets. I can pay for jerseys. Why, I mean, if I'm a consumer and I care about the game, why should the game just be tailored for you?
Well, I mean, and you're right. And if I were in marketing, then I would agree. I mean, NASCAR has a lot of female fans. Really surprises people because it's such a grease monkey thing. But, like, I mean, the smart NFL marketers, Alyssa Milano, you know, for example, has this line of clothing. I think she's partnered with most of the big sports leagues to sell, you know, clothes that are actually made for women. And, yeah, that's smart. You're right. I agree with that. You absolutely should. But if you're talking about joining my circle of friends and hanging out with us, you know, and watching the game, then, you know, like, I don't want, like, don't come over, like, in a mini skirt. You know, like, it doesn't say, it signals to me that you're thinking about sex, and, you know, that makes sense, you know, we're not, like, dressed up or anything.
I mean, I think that gets into the expectation that women are supposed to look really good all the time, right? I mean, it's not just that we're supposed to look good at the ballpark, there's no sphere in which women are allowed to sort of relax and let their hair down and not do their hair and not do their makeup. I mean, I think that sort of applies a double standard in that, you know, if we're supposed to show up at your house and look relaxed, that's actually, I feel like I'm not quite explaining what I'm saying.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think men are judged on the basis of their looks too, but no, I think it's the opposite. I think that if it's a Super Bowl watching party, like, there's always those 3 women that no one knows at every party, and they're wearing mini skirts and heels and heavy makeup. And you're like, why are you dressed for a nightclub?
Sure, and
like,
I mean,
to me, that Go ahead.
And this is a real challenge for me as a female sports fan, right? Like, those chicks drive me nuts. They drive me absolutely crazy because they undermine my credibility. They make it harder for me to be in the game because I feel like women who love sports have to sort of overcompensate, right? Like, those chicks distract you, but they're kind of a pain for me too. And I think that's one of the consistent challenges that women face, right? Like, how do we meet all of the other expectations? We're supposed to be cute all the time, ballpark, man cave, wherever. We're supposed to, you know, if we want to be taken seriously. Everybody has expectations. Nobody, like, you know, there's not any social space where someone says, yeah, show up ugly, you know. But it's like, I mean, I guess, is the question you're asking, like, you know, what can a girl do to fit in with a bunch of sports fans? Or is the question, does the culture of male sports fandom need to be changed? I mean,
you know what I mean? Just because the first is like tips. I can give you tips, you know. Like.
Well, I think the first question is a gateway to the second, right? I mean, you and I have been sort of wrestling over the question of whether men and women, in the comfort of their own homes, at stadiums, can watch the games together and each have the sort of optimal experience that they'd like to have in each other's company. And where you seem to be coming down is saying that no, they can't. That ultimately what guys want is to, like, sit in your man cave and, like, bump chests and insult each other, and that's the thing that you need to enjoy sports most. And and I mean,
no, but just because I want to address this, because it's like you're right. I mean, I can't live with the Masters. I can't live with a restrictive country club. I can't. And my world is broader when I have female sports fans, the female sports fan perspective in it. But it does freak us out because, you know, like I said in one of the pieces we wrote and some of the exchanges we've had, that, like, you know, there's this thing where women say, excuse me, you know, there's this thing where women say, treat me just like, you know, one of the guys, and then we say, you dirty, you know, hunt, and the words that you're not supposed to use and stuff. And that's how men talk. And to us, that's male bonding. And I feel, personally, I won't speak for all men. Like, I feel like women, where I've had experiences that they freak out and they think you're disgusting. And it's really hard to make, it is really hard to make friends in that context with a woman when you're watching sports, And the overcompensation does exist. Like, I know it's totally like, like the stat queen. Like, there really is, like, the stat queen. It's like, okay, I get it. You like football or something. But, I mean, I don't want you out. I mean, I like to have women. Like I say, I'm not a Neanderthal. I like to have women around. I just feel like, and maybe this is sexist as hell, Alyssa, and, like, answer this question for me. Because, I don't want to be like, oh, the white male is put upon. The straight white male is so put upon. But
Poor
it's like,
Hampton.
I really don't feel... Go ahead. No, go.
I mean, I guess...
Yeah, right? It's like, I'm so persecuted. But, I mean, I do feel like there aren't that many spaces for me, for just, like, dudes to be the idiots that we are. And I know that maybe it sounds dumb. Like, I look around like, no, you're like, every space is for that. But
no, I get it.
I don't see it,
No, I
feel
definitely...
like
go
ahead.
I definitely understand that. My brother has a man cave and, like, he has his drum sets, and that's awesome. And I think the question, ultimately, if, like, I don't really need to interrupt manly bonding time. Like, I don't need to crash the party. I don't think there needs to be, equal opportunity, gender neutral man caves all of the time.
Gender neutral football, just like, let's just
But I think,
why should physical strength play a part? That's not fair.
I think the real question for me is that time doesn't seem to be enough, right? I think that even my worry is how sort of male behavior spills over from the man cave to the stadium, and how attitudes about women and sports shut women who, can do the job, who deserve the work, out of sports reporting, out of, I think if you look at
the Jets this season.
Yeah, if you look at the Jets and Inez Sands.
She's here. She's in Dallas, And
I think, how do you, if it's really important to you to, like, go in your man cave and insult each other, I don't particularly want into that space. My question is, when did sports become sort of, and why do, in certain really,
No, I know.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. No, it's the stuff we talk about. It's the show you're this and the do you're that, and women being made to feel uncomfortable in drunken situations at football stadiums.
But it's not just...
And my awesome retort was going to you, because, like, the Jets had a problem with that, or Jets fans had a problem with that at the new Meadowlands, I guess, this year. And, that it happens when there's a lot of people, that, a lot of places where people get drunk and stupid, but... it makes me profoundly uncomfortable, and I wished it was just the East Coast. I guess, like, that's the thing. That's the point I was wanting to say. Is like, oh no, that doesn't happen in Kansas City, and it doesn't actually, because Arrowhead is like a family environment. But the Deadspin video, the questionable sexual thing, that was a sports bar, I think, in Bloomington. I think it was in Indiana. So, like, is there kind of this thuggish behavior? Yes. Is it connected to sports? Yes. Does it come from sports? No.
Yeah, and I agree.
I guess my question is this growing? It's kind of like the weather. Everybody wants to be, this is changing and happening. Like, is it really, is this really something that's growing, or is it just something that you and I are experiencing, or that people hear more about because 25 years ago we wouldn't have known that thing happened in a bar because there wouldn't have been a video on it? Like, is there a rising tide of ruffianism or hooliganism around sports in America?
Well,
Yes or no?
I don't know if I think things are getting worse, I think part of it is that I come from a sports region where women are really integrated into all aspects of the game, right? Boston is...
I'm sorry. Did you mean lesbians?
Is this going to end with you? Is this going to end with you asking me to take off my top? Is this going to be like the first attempted flashing soliciting in the history of blogging?
I've got beads. Yeah, I've got beads. So.
But in Boston, for example, the Red Sox are quite a woman-friendly franchise. The Boston Globe has had great women sports reporters and columnists for as long as I've lived in the region.
I have something caught in my throat. Racist! Oh, wait, let me get that.
There is that. I mean...
Well, no, seriously, I've had people tell me, I've been to Talladega, I've been to Daytona, all over the Deep South. I've had African Americans tell me that they have never had a tougher time than they will have at Fenway.
Yeah, I mean...
But your question is about female sports reporters, and I forgot about it, so I want to address it.
Let me just back up for a minute.
Dude, do you want to have someone asking you questions while you're naked? I don't like to go in a locker room as a reporter because it's really, really uncomfortable.
Right. I mean, I also think the idea that, like, all reporting has to happen in the locker room is sort of a misnomer, right? Like, you can, I mean...
All right, you're right.
There are ways that you can just structure the process of sports reporting that means that you don't have to have, a lady in the locker room and a bunch of guys saying weird stuff because they're uncomfortable because they're naked and she's there. I mean, someone like Amelie Benjamin, who, was a long-time Red Sox beat reporter and is a wonderful sports reporter. I think as a female fan, it's always felt good to have her, to have Jackie McMullen there. I mean, one of my favorite moments of sports in the last couple of years is, Celtics win the championship and Kevin Garnett basically goes to pieces on Michelle Tafoya because, he's known her since he was in Minnesota, and she can do her job better, not necessarily because she's a woman, but because the two of them have worked together as reporter and source for a long time. And it was just this nice moment. It was totally gender neutral. It was, it wasn't her asking softball questions. They were there in the moment together, and I wish we could see more of that. I mean, we were talking about sort of the girls in heels who don't care about the game. I would love to see, women as something other than, fluffy sideline commentary. And I think that's
Did you just want to say Erin Andrews? You can't. I mean, that's like, first of all, and let me say Erin Andrews, really knows about sports, and I think she dresses inappropriately. But because she doesn't dress to be taken seriously, but she's really knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And Michelle Tafoya and Jackie McMullen are just tremendous at what they do. It does strike me that when I hear female broadcasters in the booth as opposed to on the sidelines, it's just the female voice is higher and the lower voice, it's not a question of personality or something, or maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm that socialized, but
and I mean,
I
don't deny that I've never played football, and so I can't speak to the mental experience of what it's like to be in the pocket and under pressure, or what it's like to catch a touchdown pass. And I think when you're filling your slot of commentators and picking the people who have played the game, if that's men and that's an area where women can't break into it, I respect that. Ultimately, I do. But I don't see why you couldn't have a former Olympic level softball player doing some in the booth commentary on baseball. That's something I'd love to see.
I honestly, I think it's aesthetic because I think that, guys, male broadcasters as well, they get jobs because of the tenor of their voices. Certainly the ex-jocks too, but even, a guy like Troy Aikman he has a really nice tone. He really does. And I think it might, is that, I don't know, is that BS? Am I full of it?
No, I think that makes, I think that there may be a larger discussion around sort of actual merit hiring in sports reporting, if that makes sense. That, it's...
Well, the thing is, if you win a couple Super Bowls, then you probably have them. He's just part of the old boy network. Well, because he won a couple Super Bowls, that tends to help. He knows what he's talking about. But yeah, I think in terms of female reporting, to me, it's a difference between reporting and broadcasting. Broadcasting, sideline reporters can be just appalling no matter who they are. And
sideline reporting.
In fairness, fans don't especially like it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sideline reporting is inherently sort of a silly job, though, right? It's and it's
Well, not when it's Michelle Tafoya, who, by the way, in the instance that you described, was not reporting at all, and certainly wasn't objective.
She was mostly the object of KG's emotions, of which there were many.
Yeah, no, I love that moment. I don't even, I was kind of rooting for the Celtics because I'm a Jayhawk.
Right.
And so Paul Pierce Like, we're very proud of that kind of thing, the players, around the league. But it's like, but that got me excited. I mean, that was amazing, like, you got Garnett, you gotta love it. He's one of the most entertaining guys in the league. I'm not sure if should be going to the All-Star game. Didn't they get like 4? The Celtics got like 4 reserves. Like, really? But anyway, it's not Jim. People don't want Jim Gray. You don't want somebody on the sideline that's that's asking these challenging questions. By the same token, let me ask you a question, because you talk about sideline reporters. I brought up Erin Andrews and
sure.
The woman from with the Jets this year. They had the problem with the young lady reporter from the Latin station.
Yeah.
Inez. I can't recall her last name.
Inez Sands,
okay, well, what's your job there? Like, is it like, I can wear whatever I want? I can wear a bikini, and I'm not, what is her job there?
Yeah, and
Erin Andrews, it's like, have you seen the Kansas Hot Kid? Have you seen the web YouTube sensation? They went to KU to Allen Fieldhouse to cover a game, and Erin Andrews was there, and this kid stands up behind Erin Andrews, goes, "She's hot," and it became like a web viral thing. It was like, he was at the Battle of Waterloo.
Let me put it this way. I mean, the woman in sports who drives me most crazy is the sideline reporter for the Red Sox, Heidi Watney, who is blonde and doesn't know very much about baseball and had an affair with Jason Varitek, our catcher, and broke up his marriage, and just...
That's the worst. That's like the worst you can get.
And she sets us back 15 years, right? Because she's everything that's wrong and everything that women who care about baseball fight against, or who care about sports in general fight against, right?
But why do you care? Why does she identify? What does that have to do with you? I don't look at her and go, that's the problem with all chicks. I look at her, coaches do it,
right.
Coaches bang this, players do that. Can you say bang? They do that, you know what I mean? But it's like, I don't associate that with women. I associate that with a sleazy person. That doesn't have anything to do with the chick who hangs out with my group and doesn't want to do put downs, or I don't know.
But to me, Heidi Watney undermines. I really, really wish that people could distinguish between people like Heidi Watney and people like Michelle Tafoya. But I think at the end of the day, people like Heidi Watney mean that reporters like Michelle Tafoya or Amelie Benjamin have to work harder to be taken seriously. They have to. There's no opportunity to slip up or have a weird moment, because then you're just like that other broad who, got with the catcher, right? I think the problem is that...
But are men exempt from that? How does that work for males? Do we get extra...
I just think women are working, and we've sort of established that, women are kind of starting from a lower baseline. If we have...
Okay, that's fair.
If we always have to prove more... if we have to establish our bona fides just to prove that we're knowledgeable, and then if women showing up...
Okay, but here's the thing. Actually, Alyssa, let me interrupt you, because here's the thing that kind of gets back to our debate earlier. Man, I don't want you, and I called you man, which is sort of funny and ironic, but I don't want the female sports fans that I hang around with to be knowledgeable. I want them to be funny. The same thing with the male fans. Everybody has every circle has this one guy, or stat geeks or whatever it is. I feel like mentioning my friends' names because I know they'll watch this, but I won't. But it's I have, a friend who's can name every single player from a roster, from the Kansas City Kings roster for the, that ever. And it's just you're a better fan than I am. It's I don't want someone who's trying to prove themselves. I just want someone who hangs out. And
okay.
My objection is that when you go ahead.
No. I think that actually really clarifies something. Because I think that, let me put it this way. One of my favorite people who I talk about sports with in the world just knows more than anybody else. He's incredibly knowledgeable. And that knowledge often forms the basis for really good stories or really good jokes. And so I think that, that we're talking about are sort of two different stages, and I think I and other women maybe sometimes mistake knowing a lot for being the entrance criteria, and I think you articulating it as knowing how to be funny. that actually makes things a lot clearer.
I think that's true. I really do. I don't think women are alone in that. I think a lot of men. I mean, I'm not an athlete. Like I'm not. Ever since I was a kid, I was the one who was describing it and looking at it and breaking it down. Like, and I mean, whatever, like backyard. But it's not. I mean, it's not an interest of. It's not it's just a question of being fun to hang out with. What you're ultimately doing is spending your free time with someone who's your buddies, and it's just like, no, I think that the person who, I actually have a friend who will call me up, and this is how I answer phone, like, hello, and it's like, who played catcher for the 1972 Boston Red Sox?
Right. I mean, that's exhausting, right? And that method of interacting is clearly a pain in the ass. I mean, I guess.
But my talk is that our point in the debate was that sports talk is unbelievably cruel. Like, if somebody in a professional context says to me, "You're an idiot," like I would be furious. I mean, I would be furious. Like if they don't end a professional communication with "please" and "thank you" and "I really appreciate your time," I can get really snarky, especially as a writer, because it's like, okay, no story for you. I'm not gonna. Why do I have to review your book and make you money? And it's like the fact that I can do that with that exact same person. I can be sitting in a room and I go, "Are you a freaking moron?"
Yeah.
Or they can tell me like, "Oh no, dude, you're nuts."
So it's more that it's not. So, I mean, I guess the way you're talking about the release from social norms makes a little bit more sense to me now than it did in our earlier conversation when I sort of thought you were defending the right of dudes to be Cro-Magnons, and now it sounds like what you're saying is that sports provide sort of a relief from etiquette that's almost sort of more intimate than formal communication. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's the bonding thing as I was talking about, is that when part of the thing is when somebody gets shouted down, or dissed, or I mean, mostly just, haircuts get made fun of, and, you're probably looking away. Haircuts get made fun of and stuff like that. It's not, it's trust. You're learning to trust that the person with you won't freak out when you insult them. It doesn't quite mean that they're tough. Yeah, they're tough. Like the thing in the piece was like, you make fun of a guy's shoes, he'll probably swear at you. You make fun of a woman's shoes, and no one knows what happened. No one never lives to tell the tale. But it's true that you can't make. But can I make fun of your hair? Can I make fun if you show up in a mini skirt and hoop earrings, to watch the game, it's like, how can I not say like, nice rack or whatever it is, where that's the kind of thing that I would say to my friends.
Well, I mean, if you did that, I would bow and take the compliment. But, I mean, I think that...
The bow is what would work, yeah.
But I think to me that is... So that's like one kind of intimacy. Cruelty is one kind of humor, right? I mean, I spend... Mm-hmm. And I don't know that... I mean... Maybe that's the most effective way for you of, like, getting close to somebody. I mean, I'm being facetious here, but I think that, I think that there are a lot of ways to be funny, and that being mean isn't the only one, and it's certainly not the only one that works in sports. I mean, a movie like Bull Durham is essentially free of the humor of cruelty. I mean, a couple of the characters rib each other a lot, but the single funniest scene in the whole movie is a bunch of players standing around the pitcher's mound discussing what to get one of their teammates for his wedding and how to deal with another one's anxiety about his father. I mean, just the idea that the only way to be funny is to rip on each other seems to me to be pretty limited.
Well, the funniest scene in Bull Durham is when Nuke LaLoosh is standing on the mound talking to himself wearing lingerie. So you're wrong there.
No. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
The scene where Crash, adjusts his garter belt. The rose goes in the front. I mean, that's pretty fun.
One of the things, Alyssa, one of the things that's been remarkable about this debate, both online at the Atlantic.com Culture Channel, and here is that every time I talk about football, you
talk about baseball. All right, that's fair.
And I don't know if that's because the Red Sox are so deeply ingrained. I mean, honestly, how many Super Bowls would the Patriots have to win before it came close? Like 50? And the thing that kills me about the Patriots is that it's like third behind the Celtics. Like the Boston sports fandom. Like you wrote, "Oh, I'm upset about the loss." Like, yeah, I feel terrible for you. Things have just been so rough in New England lately. Hey, the Chiefs. Well, anyway, let's start about the Royals. But I do think there's a fundamental difference. We're talking about the difference between baseball and football, and there's obviously a difference in fandom. I don't know if that has to do with alcohol, but it's more violent. And I feel really positive about that. And I can't, I don't know, I guess I wanted your opinion, do you honestly think that there's a connection between a violent sport and a violence towards women?
No, and I think that,
No, you feel so, because it bothers me, it upsets me, we used to have a broadcaster, I'm sorry, I know I interrupted you, but it's like, we used to have we do have a broadcaster in Kansas City, Bill Grigsby, but his line after a bad loss, I remember him say, all right, don't go home and kick the dog, and I wonder if, I know that there's studies on it, but studies can be made to show anything, so you don't feel uncomfortable about that, boxing.
Look, I think that there are obvious problems with, with taking young men, giving them a lot of money, and not a lot of structure. I think that is a challenge, but I don't...
young men, fatherless men,
I think there are all sorts of ways to make stupid decisions when you've got a ton of money and you maybe haven't had the experience of, having a job or... But I think that behavioral problems that athletes have a lot more to do with sort of access and adulation than with access and adulation than they do with the sort of physicality of the game, right? I don't think anybody goes out and rapes somebody because their job is to knock people over on a football field. I just don't think. No, and they're also targets. And they are, and there are those kind of women who. When you talk about, a reporter, having an affair with a baseball player does not set women back. What sets women back, and, given the Roethlisberger situation this year, I don't really have a leg to stand on this, but what sets women back is when you do feel like that athletes are targeted, there's false accusations. I think Mark Sanchez at USC, there was something, I don't know the legal details, but it seemed like it was... That two people did something and then one of them later kind of changed their mind. And, that frightens me more than, the gold digger. The gold digger, I'm in Dallas at the party. It's I'll be at the GQ party, it's you can see the gold and you can see the gold diggers, and you can stay away from them. And that doesn't bother me because those women want nothing to do with me. Ryder is not at the top of their list. But that doesn't, I don't feel like that's anything that threatens women, or that sets women back. What does set women back is that kind of just targeted, going after athletes, money, going after athletes because that if you report something, it'll be in the news, and so they'll give you six figures to pay you off. That's the kind of thing that upsets me, and that I fear. It's part of the broader social norm that I would want to address, rather than saying I've never understood why cheerleaders couldn't date football players. Never had any understanding why that was illegal. I guess I can see it between media and the team, if it's hard news, but come on. You don't think there's been staffers in the White House, in the White House press corps that, come on. Well, let's back up a second, because I think, there are a couple of things that you're saying here, right? We're discussing whether... and I think a lot of the problems that athletes have with sexual assault allegations, those aren't problems about sports, right? They're problems about men and women and sexual norms and consent, none of which we figured out in any sphere. There is no, I don't think there's anyone anywhere who's really satisfied with how conversations about sex and consent, and then how, accusations and investigations go forward. I don't think that's something we figured out when it comes to athletes and women, and I don't think it's something that we figured out sort of in any aspect.
Men and women.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Men and women don't have this.
No, the problem with the athletes is what you talk about is the privilege. It's because they really are singled out from a very young age, and just if you talk to these young men, they're not, they're they don't have any idea. You know, like that's just not. It's almost like you don't even understand. You know, they're just dumb kids. You know what I mean? Most of them are in their 20s. But go ahead.
Right, and so I think that's sort of one issue, and sports are an area where that is really publicized, right? And I think sexual assault allegations, when the person who's accused is an athlete, often get more heightened because we don't like the idea that these people that we admire for what they do on a field as part of their lives are bad people in other parts of their lives. I mean, I think...
No, absolutely. You have honor on the field, you should have honor off it.
Right, and so there's this cognitive difficulty for fans when somebody gets accused. And then there are also, clear, there are clear structures of privilege that sometimes protect athletes when they're accused. I mean, if you look at the case of this woman who committed suicide after a sexual assault allegation at Notre Dame de l'Arc, there's a clear debate about whether her accuser was protected and continues to be protected after her death because he's a key part of the football team. And I think that heightens a cycle where people who support these athletes are both more inclined to protect them because we have this emotional value invested in them that we don't have emotionally invested in stringers.
Emotional value? Shit, they're not... But it's not emotional value, it's the money. It's the money. Whether I don't care whether you're in college, talking about college or pros. There's plenty of money.
Okay, but there's
they're not. It's winning. If you got a high school program in Texas and you get a recruit, I'm not kidding. And you get a recruit, whatever it is, you are bringing more hot dog money in, more stadium money. There's $4 million high school practice facilities.
Absolutely. So there's,
no kidding around.
But there's money and there's, sort of an emotional, honorable investment, and then there's this. I think this is an area where... Yeah,
I would love it if it was the emotional honorable investment. That would make me a lot happier, actually. I think that what really frightens me is not that, people protect these athletes, and they get passing grades when they shouldn't. And I as a lover of college athletics, and particularly, like a Big 12 school, it's like, it's hard to say that, but they need to get grades. You need to get grades. If you can make your living in Europe, you can do something. If you can't make grades, by the same token, they should be getting paid for the money that they're generating for the schools.
Right. I
don't understand what's wrong with that.
Yeah,
sorry, it's a different debate. We're talking about sex, but anyway, back to the ladies. Addressing your larger point, it's that they don't I don't want to say they don't even know what's wrong, but you were really talking about it is difficult. To see these kids are separated 7, 8 years old. There's one singular athlete in every 10 that, you've never seen one in your neighborhood. You might, but there's the one kid who was 8 years old and playing with the 13-year-old.
Right.
It's they are separated way early in life and just don't know. I am not kidding. They just don't. It's what do you mean I can't grab her butt? It just wouldn't occur, or and that's kind of thing. You can get sued for a couple $100,000 for doing it at a party, and that's the kind of thing is they just the professional athlete, the big time amateur professional athlete are just not given the tools, the resources, the kind of guidance to be role models. I just don't feel it. And for every Troy Polamalu who's amazing, there's whatever, Roethlisberger, who's maybe trying to redeem himself, Steeler fans will phrase it that way. But that's what I feel really uncomfortable with, is that notion of that. How do you break into that culture and say, this isn't okay?
Well, and there's this
really isn't okay. You can't play because you got a C or whatever it is.
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, what we pay these people for is not to be good men. That is not what they're hired to do. And I think that's hard to come to terms with, right? One of the reasons that...
I don't think that's true at all. Particularly for women. Just to try to swing it back, but particularly for women, because they might be... you're paid... Tom Brady's paid, but he's paid because he's on the cover of GQ, as well as being a magnificent athlete.
Okay, but primarily, at the end of the day,
But the real money is in endorsements. And I do feel I mean, what happens when you get a Tiger Woods? You know, it's like women buy everything in America. You know, women are the ones who do the actual shopping. You know, and it's like I do feel that when someone like Tiger Woods drops all those, I mean, that's really where the money is. You know, it's not in PGA Tour tournament ways. I mean, the golfer is true, but no, I think that when someone breaks our heart, I mean, that's why you and I had that debate about Michael Vick.
Yeah.
And that's like when someone breaks our heart. And so, no, I expect I expect my football players to not be charged with sexual assault.
And the thing is, like, you know, it's, I don't know. I would like for our athletes to be good men. Like, I really would. But their primary job, like, the thing that they show up for and from which all the endorsements flow, is more about using their bodies to achieve goals, you know? And I think if you get the Troy Polamalu, if you get the guy who does a ton of charity work on the side, if you get the Tim Wakefield.
And really, there's an awful lot of that. I mean, really, a lot of, particularly NFL athletes and Major League Baseball athletes, they really are, in many cases, I really do feel necessary to say, extraordinary people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Really are just extraordinary, like, who give away all kinds of stuff to charity and give their time. Where you and I are like sleeping, well, me anyway, you know, sleeping and stuff. So, but I really do like, and bright, you know, it makes us feel better. Go, there's dumb athletes. Like, nah, a lot of times they're really not. But I mean, to your point, yeah, I want to admire my athletes, but they're doing stuff with their bodies, and so is it? We can't be surprised when they do other stuff with their bodies that's not right, like get in bar fights or, you know, hit on women inappropriately.
I mean, I guess the question is, you know, should that become part of the job? Should there be stronger conduct clauses? Certainly one of...
My opinion, yeah. My opinion, absolutely. And I think it'd be good money for the NFL. I really do. I think Roger Goodell has been a little more strict than Paul Tagliabue, the Tank Johnson, and the Pac-Man Jones situation. You know, and it's relevant because all of these, Tank Johnson was guns, but, like, you know, usually women are involved. You know, in these situations, but I was baffled by Vic, and frankly, I was baffled by. I wasn't baffled, but I was a little disappointed by Ben Roethlisberger, and I really was a little disappointed by this Steelers. That's pretty unacceptable stuff, and it was going on for longer than the one that finally was sort of the line in the sand, and I thought that's irresponsible. I mean, that's the old Barry Switzer in Oklahoma, you know, just like lack of oversight there. And
yeah,
I don't care if you have a Super Bowl trophy. I'm really, really uncomfortable with that. But at the same token, it's if you have the athlete who, you know, maybe has a few issues or whatever, but he's a dynamic athlete, you know, people are buying tickets and watching the game.
And it's hard. I mean, I think look, I would love to believe that the league would be into conduct clauses and that, you know, that could become sort of a standard part of contracts. But I think that's always, I think that's going to be more of a challenge to sell owners and to sell the league on the idea that, you know, that's good business, if only because there are a lot of people who are going to root for Big Ben on Sunday, you know? And who am I to lie? I really wish Tom Brady could run the ball the way that Ben Roethlisberger does. Like, to me, Brady is just a profoundly incomplete quarterback because he's so afraid to run. But
afraid? Wow.
Yeah.
These are strong statements. This is actually getting me more fired up than the sexual issues. I think we're kind of petering out on that. But now, like, really? Like, no, Aaron Rodgers has the feet in this game. Ben Rodgers has the strength to stay. Ben Roethlisberger has the strength to stay up. Like, that's it. No, and Tom Brady is probably not afraid. Maybe poor phrasing, but no, I know what you're saying. But it's hard to root for him, you know. And I wonder, like, are there Steeler fans out there who said, like, yeah, I know they didn't press charges, and I know he's redeemed or whatever, but it's only symbolic. But I don't want my season tickets anymore.
Well, I guess
I'd be interested in that.
The problem is, where do you set? What's the tipping point, right? I mean, my sense is that Steelers fans, a lot of them are disgusted with Roethlisberger, and you know, they are just disgusted by his behavior, but you've got 8 home games a season. People are going to fill those seats. Like, I mean, I unfortunately don't believe the market will get to the point where there is enough moral disapproval at a low enough level to make it a business imperative to force athletes to behave.
Well, it's clearly not. I mean, the NFL is bigger than it it ever has been. And I also think, but they behave okay, but I did want to address that. I don't know if I think that a lot of his teammates were probably upset at the time when Roethlisberger was doing this stuff, but it's not a position. It's much more of a relationship between in the military than it is between like a family member. It's like I don't see someone that's on like a second string linebacker of the defensive unit like having a strong opinion necessarily about whether Ben Roethlisberger should be this or that just because he's taking care of his own business. And it's like it's jeopardizing the team.
Right.
Like you're messing around. Like it stops when you jeopardize the when you have to get suspended and can't play. And we hope that won't come up. And everything Roethlisberger is doing this week, no matter what TMZ says, everything Roethlisberger's doing is right. And, he's not spotted in... Yeah. Anyway, I just realized we've gotten so dazzlingly, devastatingly off topic that I thought maybe we could wind it up and get back on track at the same time.
I think, Ta-Nehisi Coates said something really good this week. And he said that, look, I'm sorry, who? Ta-Nehisi Coates on The Atlantic was, blogging about some of the stuff we've written, and he said, look, if there was a football player who was just openly racist and terrible to black people, he couldn't function in the game because he couldn't function in his locker room. And, we're just not at that point with behavior towards women, right? Like, that is just, we're not at that point there's obvious widespread societal disapproval of sexual assault, but we're just not at the point where behavior towards women is sort of a make or break point for either teams or locker rooms in the NFL, and that's too bad. I wish that were different, but I think that's we're stuck on that. And I think women are going to continue to be stuck with games like this Sundays where, there's the play and there's the behavior, and it gets harder to separate them and just enjoy the game in an uncomplicated way, and that's too bad. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough for me to, it's tough because racist is so much easier to define. It's like people using this word, opening a thing, and it's like, well, I don't know exactly how you define. I don't know if you can draw the line as cleanly. It's like someone who does because of sex. Because sometimes sex is not all about love. It's about domination and submission and can be complicated. And it's like, I don't know how you can go into a locker room and say, okay, well, that's the guy who's not nice, who's not respectful of the ladies. I'm asking. It doesn't say, I don't know how that would work. Like, in terms of, I'm trying to think, if Roethlisberger, instead of, we're picking on him, aren't we? Well, let's see. But if Roethlisberger, instead of a sexual assault, like he had been caught at a Klan rally, or, alleged sexual assault where it was just, if he had been caught at a Klan rally or something, like pictures of him with a hood and, getting ready to light the cross, it's like, yeah, absolutely. What's the equivalent of that? Like, pictures of him in the bathroom with the girl, tying her and she's going, and I'm not being facetious. I really want to know what that looks like. It's like, I think that if you hit your wife or your girlfriend, I think that's, I'm not, to me in a locker room, that's going to be, I know, but, to me that's going to be, I'm not going to be this guy's friend, but that's not, he should be suspended. And, are you right? That's a shame.
Yeah, I think that that ends up being a matter of preference rather than policy, and that's why this is so hard, right? One of my favorite moments as a sports fan, Will Cordero, and I know I'm turning the subject back to baseball, but Will Cordero beat up his wife with a hotel phone. And
you do know the Super Bowl's this week,
I
right?
know, but pitchers and catchers, soon, I'm excited. My Patriots are out, I need something else to care about. But there was, Will Cordero beat up his wife with a phone, and the Red Sox traded him to the Expos. And I would have to go back and look at the statistics and see if Cordero was having a good year, if he was performing above or below expectations, but the team just didn't want him there. The team didn't want somebody who would do that. And I don't know that we can ever enforce that, partially because, we're gonna have difficult conversations about proof and consent and what equivalent behavior looks like, but I wish.
Yeah, and I don't think that has to be regulated by Major League Baseball or by a front office. I think that that's a guy who's, I mean, yeah, Cordero, I remember, we had a guy in Kansas City, Larry Johnson, trying to get back to football, who, he just tweeted stuff in the news, and the coach is terrible, and, but the thing that finally got him out of town was he spit his drink on a young lady who, for whatever reason, he didn't feel like communing with at that moment, in a nightclub. Didn't not dump it on her, spat it out, and he was gone. 3 days later, and I was, or whatever it was, they sent him to Ohio and out of the league, we hope, I think. But he, I couldn't have been more pleased. I'm not going to stand for that. I can't stand it. And yet, by the same token, what am I doing? Am I not watching the game on TV when they're, no. And so how does that, how are teams going to feel that impact? How do we have that impact? Boo him. I booed him.
I don't know how we get to the promised land. I don't have an answer. I wish there was something better. That's.
All right, I want to, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off? Because I want to wind up and back to the intimate relations of men and circles of sports fans and female sports fans coming into those circles, because I just think clothing is such a fraught thing. It's it's colors. I'm wearing them, and it's it is a really fraught situation, and we're not talking about rape, and she was wearing a miniskirt and she asked for it. But you kind of evaded my question about the Jets reporter. It's well, she's wearing skin tight stuff and a miniskirt. She's really not asking to be taken seriously. To me, she's not. She's saying this is about me being sexy and you being attractive to me. You being attracted to me, which is great, But and to me, by the same token, that if a fan comes into our Super Bowl party, whatever, and she's wearing something provocative or even not dowdy. Dowdy's kind of strong, I guess, but to me, that anytime you introduce sex into that circle, you're creating a problem. I just wonder if you feel like telling me to shut up and. I think
that's displacing. I think that just displaces. I can look at a bunch of guys in skin tight pants playing football, and I can contain myself. I can handle it. I can look at athletes without, or I can look at athletes or actors without their shirts on, and I can handle it. I think part of the problem.
Yeah, no, we can't. Yeah, we cannot. We cannot do that.
Fair if that's where you want to come down, but then why is it women's responsibilities to handle your sensitive urges? I think that. Especially because the requirements for women in broadcast television, you're supposed to look a certain way, and that may be a requirement of your job. Their wardrobes.
Oh, come on. How many news anchor men look like Wallace Shawn? I really do. I hate this kind of stuff. Women have to look a certain way. Men are supposed to look a certain way.
Right, but the way
you don't see a lot of bald fat guys.
Right, but I don't need to crash through my TV and plant one on Shannon Sharp, right? I can handle it. I can listen to what he's saying, even though he looks good while he's doing it.
Because watching a game together is it's a hyper masculine environment, and it's obviously that includes being hyper heterosexual. And so, say that.
All right, I feel like I'm going to have to come to a game at your house in Kansas City and see if we can get through this together, because. I know.
Oh no, you don't want to do that. That's just my dad telling stories from the late '60s. It's basically like Cotton Hill, Hank's father from King of the Hill. It's boy, but yeah. The sports bar experience, I guess, is what I'm talking about, where you can kind of yell and shout, and I'm trying to think of other instances. Heels, I always find objectionable in a stadium because you're doing a lot of walking. To me, that doesn't make much sense. But would that bother you? To me, if you're wearing a miniskirt to a game, you're saying, "Look at my legs."
If you wear shorts to a game, does that mean you're saying, "Look at my legs"? It gets hot at the park in summer.
Right. I don't know. I feel like we have no resolution of this. Like there's nothing. There's just we haven't decided anything. Like I feel like I want to give like tips. Like why can men say things about women during a game, but women can't say things about men?
Maybe we're just stuck on one of the fundamental inequalities of the universe. All I know is that on Sunday I am.
Okay, I got it. I have the analogy.
All right.
Weddings.
Wait, what?
Weddings. It's weddings. The analogy is weddings. Look, you can talk about sex roles, you can talk about changing this and that, you can talk about everything being better when everybody is involved, but there's a certain point where, in the most cases, there's a certain point where the man says about the wedding, I am not involved here. This is not my decision. I might have good opinions. I'm not an animal. I have a sense of color. I know what I know what flowers are. But like there comes a point where it's like this is not a masculine realm. This is a wedding, and it is not about you or anything else. Maybe you can pick the band, but there comes a point where we just back off and say, okay, I'm an ornament here. My job is to wear a tuxedo. That's fine. And like I just there's a part of me that just wants to say like why, and not that women are ornaments, but just like why can't it be okay, I am going to embrace these totally masculine values. Why does it have to be I'm going to come into this space and kind of change it?
I mean, I guess look,
am I just full of it?
I mean,
am I just wrong?
I just think as long as people have been competing, women have been showing up to watch the games along with men. It's not like the Coliseum is, free of girls. That's not like, the Coliseum is not a man cave. Like, Take Me Out to the Ball Game is written about a woman who knows as much about baseball as men do. Like, the idea that sports is an inherently masculine space, I think is untrue. I think that's wrong. And I think that I don't need to come into your man cave. You can have your man cave. We've established that. But I think there's room to argue about what the environment at bars and at stadiums should be like. And I don't think you disagree with me on that. But
our disagreement is between the physical and the emotional. Like, I don't think anybody, male or female, should be touched or hurt or fought or assaulted at a football game or a baseball game or any place else. That's why these things are against the law. But it's like, it's this between say my buddies like, yeah, what up, bitch? And, the kind of...
I'm fainting, I can't handle your language.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's biatch and bitch, but it's like, like there's a difference, like I'm scared that you're going to yell at me. That's what it comes right down to. Like, not exclusive.
So really, this is all about, this is really about, look, if this is irreconcilable, I grant you the man cave, and I will go watch sports with my friend Mike on, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl with him on Sunday, and we can compare notes, and we can talk about whether my male friend's masculinity was impugned, but, I mean, maybe it's just that each group needs to find its own dynamic, and then we can all come together on Sunday and eat a lot of food that's really terrible for us and watch a lot of those really terrible beer commercials.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really what the game's about. And I really want to understand how my ways of watching a game can be. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate. It's like I said, we're just friends sitting around going like, he should have hit that pass, or maybe a lot of cussing. It's not like eating raw meat and Iron John stuff, but. I mean, but that's what I'm trying to defend here in this space, and but I do want to understand how you talked about female ways of watching sports, of caring about sports, enriching the experience of sports, and when I hear that, I think of like the NBC Olympic coverage with every athlete has a 10-minute story or an 8-minute package story about whatever hardship they overcame. Well, if you got to the Olympics, you probably overcame a hardship, especially if it's from a third world country. Chances are, and it's like it speaks to me of human interest reporting, and I don't think that's what you meant. And so when you talk about those, a female way of being a sports fan, other than the players have cute butts, what does that mean?
That's a good question. I feel like we're kind of... Yeah, I don't want to run over our generous host time here, but I think that appreciating the multidimensionality of sports whether it's, this is competition and war, this is me, appreciating men in a way that I don't always get to, whether this is, this is my one shot at a community because I feel alienated from things, and then I step into a ballpark and, class and race and gender fall away. I mean, what I care about is, I think that there are so many ways of feeling part of a community and of appreciating sports together that, I think that, look, I think that leveling factor, that uniting factor, that to me is the most important thing in sports. That is why I love it. And, I think that that's not necessarily a female way of loving sports, but that I do think that there's...
No, but I think, it's that distinction.
It's a different impulse.
Again, it's that it is a female way, or more accurately, it's a feminine way. And again, it's that distinction between male, female, and masculine, and feminine. But I do, because that's fascinating to me, and I love that. And to me, I'm more feminine in my appreciation of sports than most dudes. Because I'm an absolute sucker for pageantry, feeling swept up in the crowd, colors, that kind of tribal belonging stuff, like just meeting a fellow Jayhawk or Chiefs fan, in Tokyo.
Yeah.
That's just that kind of stuff is amazing to me. And specifically what happens at the stadium when, you can join a mass consciousness, and remarkable things happen with human beings when there's a big crowd. So I embrace that, and I would like to. I don't think I need to do better at that. I personally, but I think that maybe maledom generally could. Absolutely. Boy, wasn't that easy of me. But I do think as we go over our generous host time, even this moment, I guess my corollary to you would be okay, I feel that, and I want to do better at it. You appreciate the X's and O's. Because while you're talking about all that stuff and what the players did in the background, whether Troy Polamalu is admirable or what, all those kind of things fade into the background for me when the game starts.
Sure, and
because
I guess...
then it's chess with physics, and that's what I really... talk to me about it too deep. Talk to me about, watch I'm kind of in love with Troy Polamalu this week. Oh, even though I'm predicting a Packers win 38-35, and I just made that up.
Rodgers plays well indoors, so we'll see. I think
I think it's going to be an offensive explosion. But anyway, go ahead.
Sure. I think maybe it's more about forging a compromise. You get the man cave, but when it comes to the public spaces of sports, I think we kind of got to learn how to get along.
All right. I will embrace feeling if you will embrace violence. Embrace the violence with me.
Fair.
Baseball, let me tell you, is a contact sport. It really is. It looks so beautiful and graceful. People don't see it. But Sunday, baby. Sunday, it's about hitting. It's about physics. It's about pain and overcoming pain. And that doesn't feel like a communal vibe to me. That feels like it gets me excited to want to go out and punch stuff. Okay,
you can punch things and I will watch. I think that's probably as close to an agreement as we're going to come.
I do. I feel like we've come to a question of the ages here, Alyssa. I think we've resolved this.
All right. Well, have an amazing time.
That sounds great to me, actually. That sounds ideal in some sort of archetype.
Clearly, we have to make a plan. All right. Well, have an amazing time at the game on Sunday. Don't.
Thank you.
Don't have too much to drink at the parties. I'm being your mom, since, see if you can find a...
In this snow? You think I want to drive in this snow? I fall down?
Fair enough. Well, you have fun. I will watch from my living room, and we'll talk on Monday.
Alyssa, thank you so much. It was an enormous amount of fun. I'll talk to you on Monday.
Bye.